Hey guys, today we're going to talk about Dark Web, which is the event going on in Amazing Spider-Man, Venom, and the X-Men books, and probably a few other ones that I don't know off the top of my head. Wait, Miss Marvel's involved as well. But you might be watching this video going, Benny, why are you recapping Dark Web in this manner, and you're not bringing us a complete story or a full story? Well, we're going to be trying out some new stuff here at Comicstorian, which, if it works, will lead to more full stories for you. But I'm going to explain that at the end of today's video, because just in case you clicked it and just want me to get to the Dark Web stuff, I figured, why waste your time? So, Dark Web is the event happening as a giant crossover in all of the Spider-Man books. But in order to understand what is going on in Dark Web, first you need to understand who Ben Reilly is, because he's kind of like one of the biggest villains involved in this event. Now, if you don't know who Ben Reilly is, let's go all the way back to the beginning. So Ben Reilly was actually first introduced in 1975 in a very quick clone storyline. He was just a nameless clone that was defeated. Most people know Ben Reilly, though, from 1994's Clone Saga, which is a sprawling 2 to 3 year event that pissed off so many Spider-Man fans and made other ones like myself, who at the time I would have been, I don't know, 12, I guess, when I was probably reading this. I just got so confused I stopped reading Spider-Man until almost the Dan Slott run. Now, the Clone Saga saw the return of Kane, which was kind of an evil Peter Parker. The thing with the clones was that they would degenerate. They would fall apart, their faces would become disfigured, and they would turn into goo when they died or as they were kind of falling apart. And Kane had found a way to stop it from happening, but he was kind of disfigured in the middle of it. So Kane was this edgy Peter Parker, an edgy 90s Peter Parker clone. Ben Reilly was the other clone. Ben Reilly wore the jean jacket kind of vest thingy, and he wasn't degenerating. He actually looked like Peter Parker. There was a whole battle between these three clones, and what it ended with was Ben Reilly was declared the actual Peter Parker. He wasn't the clone. And what they told us was that Peter Parker, the one that we had known for these last however many years Spider-Man had been going on, was actually the clone. The reason they did this is because Marvel didn't think that a Peter Parker and Mary Jane marriage would work, but they wanted to kind of send Peter Parker off. So what they decided to do was this clone of Peter Parker, which we thought was the real Peter Parker, and I know this is confusing, but the clone of Peter Parker that we thought was the real Peter Parker would marry Mary Jane and they would leave, leaving Ben Reilly as the official Spider-Man because he was the actual Peter Parker. Now, this went on for, I think, about a year or so, but what ended up happening was the fans didn't like this. They didn't like this resolution to the whole thing, because you're basically telling the fans that the Peter Parker that they had been following since 1975's original clone story wasn't the real guy. And no matter how many times you try to go, well, kind of not, the fans just didn't want that. So Marvel retconned this whole thing. They decided that the Peter Parker that we thought was the clone was the actual Peter Parker, the one that was with Mary Jane, and that Ben Reilly was actually the clone. He was the actual clone. And that this was all a weird plan created by Norman Osborn to confuse Peter Parker as to if he was the real one or the fake one. And it worked on the fans as well. This whole storyline kind of ended with basically Green Goblin attacking the two of them. There was some poisoning of Mary Jane in the middle of it, but it all came down to Ben Reilly sacrificing himself to basically save the actual Peter Parker and the actual Mary Jane. And he was then confirmed to be the clone because he decomposed when he died. So that was the thing with clones. They would decompose. So Ben Reilly was off the table and he was gone. Now, this all happened mid-90s, and Ben Reilly was just gone at this point. He didn't exist, but there was a hardcore fan base, myself included, that enjoyed Ben Reilly. While I had kind of fallen off of Spider-Man, there was something about this edgy, single-life Peter Parker known as Ben Reilly who wore a cool jean jacket. And since it was the 90s, I wanted to wear a cool jean jacket like Spider-Man. I did for like a year, but that's a story for another day. Ben Reilly would then pop up occasionally for some weird stuff in the middle just to basically imply something may or may not have been happening. The only real important one was that he popped up in the original Spider-Verse event. Like, there was a version of Ben Reilly who then got a very heroic death. The fans loved that. But the actual Ben Reilly, the one from the 90s storyline, didn't come back until the storyline known as Clone Conspiracy. Now, Clone Conspiracy dropped around 2015, and it was Dan Slott's homage to the original Clone Saga. The concept was that Miles Warren had actually found a way to bring back Ben Reilly, that he didn't actually die, but he was trying to perfect the clone formula. So what he did was he would revive Ben Reilly, he would then put him through a whole bunch of stupid stuff, and Ben Reilly would die. So the Clone Conspiracy's plot was that Ben Reilly had died 27 times. So imagine you had been killed 27 times, how that would make you feel, where your thought processes would be. This basically made Ben Reilly into a villain, which a lot of fans didn't like because the last time we saw Ben Reilly, he was acting as Spider-Man and sacrificing himself to save Peter Parker and Mary Jane. But the writers didn't care about that. They wanted to bring back Ben Reilly, but as the Jackal. So he eventually broke free of this constant revival and death cycle, put on an Anubis mask, and he became the Jackal. And his plan was to replace everyone in the world with clones because he could work out a lot of their issues. He could take your genetic makeup and get rid of your diseases and heal you and save you that way. But you weren't you were a clone. And he was basically going to make a clone nation. They made Ben Reilly very evil. It was interesting to see this point of view, a Peter Parker who had been tortured and revived repeatedly, but they named him Ben Reilly, and a lot of fans wanted him to be heroic. Of course, Peter Parker saves the day, the Clone Conspiracy is ended, and we move away from that, but Ben Reilly got away. But now he's this Ben Reilly who has died 27 times. He wanted to wipe out humanity and replace them with clones, and then this Ben Reilly went over to Las Vegas, where he then lived as an evil Spider-Man, saving Las Vegas. He would combat against Kane, who had also come back. Kane had gone off on his own adventure. The other clone that I mentioned, the one that was like the evil, badass 90s Kane, well, he went off to do his own adventures in Houston, Texas, which were really cool. And if you haven't read it, go check out the Scarlet Spider storyline featuring Kane, because it's incredible. One of my favorite Spider-Man storylines. So Kane decided that he was going to go basically make Ben Reilly pay for his sins, make him go to justice for what he did in the Clone Conspiracy. But Ben Reilly was trying to be a pseudo anti-hero in the middle of Las Vegas. While this is going on, and I didn't read this storyline too closely, but I was aware of what happened, Kane decided he was going to kill Ben Reilly, but then Death, the embodiment of Death, kills Kane because she has taken a liking to Ben Reilly because Ben Reilly has died 27 times. Ben Reilly then gets revived by Death at some point, ends up working with the Inheritors, who are the villains from the Spider-Verse event, but they take the memories of his 27 deaths out of his head, and it drives the Inheritors insane, so they basically kill Ben Reilly a 28th time, but then Otto Octavius revives him a 28th time, but by reviving him a 28th time, his mind is all better and his soul is restored, so now Ben Reilly is a good guy, but he's got all these crimes under his belt. Basically, we get to the point of he's saving Las Vegas as a superhero again instead of being a true villain. That would lead us to the Spider-Man Beyond plot point. Now, Spider-Man Beyond was a new idea, a way to bring back the Spider-Man name and once again, try to reinvent him. So in Spider-Man Beyond, Peter Parker, proper Peter Parker, got injured by a radioactive virus that was making his spider sense attack him. It was a weird excuse, but the whole reasoning was to get him off the table. Ben Reilly was then the official Spider-Man working for the Beyond Corporation, which, if you didn't know, in the world of Marvel, most corporations turn evil. Beyond Corporation turned out to be evil. What we discovered was that they were removing memories from Ben Reilly to make him compliant and listen to them. Now, this wasn't a huge problem until Otto Octavius again got involved, and he basically told Ben Reilly, "You're being manipulated. Why are you acting this way?" To remove the memories of Otto Octavius ousting them, the Beyond Corporation removed the one key memory that Ben Reilly needed to be Spider-Man, which was the memory of Uncle Ben passing and the lesson that with great power also must come great responsibility, or also comes great responsibility, however the proper phrasing is. So Ben Reilly didn't remember the thing that made him Spider-Man. Peter Parker would then go on to come back. Ben Reilly and Peter would kind of team up, but Ben Reilly wouldn't fully remember who Peter is because the memories have been removed. Eventually, we discover that the Beyond Corporation has basically removed all the key elements of Ben Reilly's life from him. The original moments back in the 90s, the Clone Conspiracy moments, his death and revival, all of his Las Vegas adventures, for the most part, all of this has been removed. He doesn't know who he is anymore. In a final battle against Peter Parker, he falls for the villain's plan, which is to tell Ben Reilly, if you go to Peter Parker, you'll share the memories with Peter Parker. We don't know if she was lying or not. The general consensus by the comic book community is that Peter Parker was going to have his mind wiped and the villain would have won. But Ben Reilly didn't believe that. He thought that he could share the memories with Peter. So in a final battle against Peter Parker, he just sees Peter Parker basically walking away with the memories that he needs to be who he is. So he doesn't know who he truly is. He only knows like exterior moments of Peter Parker's life and Spider-Man and stuff like that. The Beyond arc ends with the building crumbling and seemingly Ben Reilly is trapped beneath everything and supposedly dead. But that didn't last very long because at the end of that very issue, we discover that Ben Reilly is now the villain known as Chasm. He's decided to take up that name because of the chasm in his life with all the memories that he's missing. Now that's the Ben Reilly history. And if you're a fan of Ben Reilly, you're probably tracking all of that and you're like, holy crap, what have they done to my boy Ben? But in order to understand what's going on Dark Web, we now have to go to the other clone. So now over on the X-Men side of the house, we're also dealing with a very similar clone saga. So Madeline Pryor was introduced all the way back in 1983, and her origin is that when Jean Grey became the Dark Phoenix and burned out and seemingly died, Madeline Pryor was awoken. She had no memories of her past, and there was a brief period where people thought maybe she was Jean Grey. She was actually created by Mr. Sinister because he believed that if Cyclops and Jean Grey could consummate their marriage and have a child, they would create the ultimate mutant. So, with Jean Grey now evil and defeated as the Dark Phoenix, he was kind of trying to replace her, but not. It was weird, and I'm not the biggest X-Men expert, so I can't go into the nitty-gritty of who Madeline Pryor is, especially in the 1983 storylines. But she started as a clone of Jean Grey. She's then gone through many, many years as a primary villain and sometimes ally of the X-Men. Because while she is a clone of Jean Grey, she still has a lot of Jean Grey's abilities. She still has Jean Grey's likeness, all these kinds of things. Her wiki is massive because I was trying to find like key moments to maybe like research on. But the fact of the matter is she's created by Mr. Sinister who wants to clone everyone in existence, it seems like. And she's the clone of Jean Grey that comes back. Now we cut all the way to the Krakoa era, which I have been more accurately keeping up with. Madeline Pryor came back again in that. And what that boiled down to, the whole plot there, was that she worked with Magic. Magic, the character that's in the current game Midnight Suns, you may know her from a couple other things, but I can't think of anything other than mobile games that she has starred in, or that really terrible X-Men movie that came out a little while ago. Anyway, Madeline Pryor and Magic came up with a deal. Magic didn't want to rule Limbo anymore, so she left it to Madeline Pryor so that Madeline Pryor could run an area that she might feel at home. It's an area full of demons and like creatures and souls, and it's Limbo. It's a Limbo demon area that's not bad, but it's not good. But that leads us to this event. So Dark Web now kicks off. Dark Web starts with a year has passed since the Beyond Corporation's whole situation with Ben Reilly, and he's apparently been wandering around just getting ragged on. Like, people assume he's Peter Parker, and we don't know what Peter Parker has done, but he did something terrible, so people see him and they blame Ben Reilly, and it's a whole thing. So he gets super furious about the whole thing, but he's looking into how can he get his memories back? How can he get back at Peter Parker? He eventually somehow finds his way into Limbo, where he ends up talking to Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen, who's also a clone, who also wants to get back at the X-Men for the treatment that they've always given her, because she's always felt like a reject, because she's a clone of Jean Grey. And now Jean Grey's back and like super important. And there was a whole debate going on over at Krakoa because you're not allowed to revive clones, but like Madeline Pryor was a clone before Krakoa was a thing. And anyway, Madeline Pryor and Ben Reilly decide to team up. And the goal of this is, we're not 100% sure at the moment, but Ben Reilly's goal is to get the memories back from Peter Parker, leading us to Dark Web. So Madeline Pryor opens up the portals of Limbo and invades New York while Peter Parker happens to be in the vicinity of the X-Men. So we have Jean Grey, we have Magic, we have Cyclops, and Havoc. I was trying to think of the fourth one. Havoc, I don't know what it is about Havoc. Side note here, I don't know what it is about Havoc. I find Scott Summers' brother to be the most forgettable X-Men in history, but whatever, he's there as well. We also have Spider-Man. Madeline Pryor is now invading New York with demons that are possessing everything from trees to trash cans to motorcycles to literally eat people. That's what's going on in Dark Web right now. Now, Spider-Man is trying to figure out what's going on, and he ran into Ben Reilly and thought they were friends, only to discover that Ben Reilly is very much against Peter Parker right now. On top of that, Venom has now joined the fray. Venom's storyline, I completely lost interest in when he went into multiversal time travel space, but as it turns out, His son Dylan has died at some point. I'll read up on it and figure it out. But his son Dylan has died at some point, and Madeline Pryor has promised to bring back Dylan if Venom helps them. So Venom has now had his memories tinkered with or wiped or whatever. We're going to find out in Venom 14 exactly what she did and how it's affecting him. But he's basically acting like Lethal Protector Venom from the early 2000s, late 90s. He's not acting like the Venom that we know from King in Black or even the recent Venom multiversal time travel thing. So we have Spider-Man fighting against Ben Reilly, aka Chasm, and basically dumb Venom, with Madeline Pryor trying to explain what's going on and Peter trying to figure it out. The X-Men are trying to find a way to stop Madeline Pryor because I guess they had an arrangement where she wasn't allowed to attack Krakoa if she was able to rule over Limbo, but I guess in those bylaws, no one also said, hey, by the way, don't attack New York because she's attacking New York. And they're literally murdering people in New York, but don't worry, we've already got a way to fix that because the X-Men's ability to resurrect the dead is now widely known, which I think is cool because, hey, we can go a little crazy and kill people, but at the same time, you just gave me the answer right away. And I know I could have thought of the answer, but you literally just gave me the answer, Spider-Man. So all of these deaths don't matter. But I do think Dark Web is going to be an overall fun event. We're 3 issues into it right now. You have Dark Web 1, then we have Dark Web X-Men number 1, and then we have Amazing Spider-Man number 15. Those are the 3 books in this event right now, and it's already going to span things into January. So my plan is to keep you guys caught up by doing this kind of a video where I'll tell you all the nitty-gritty and you know how all the key players fit into this equation. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of a recap because what I would like to do, and this is the changes coming to Comicstorian, is if you are up for watching these recaps of what's going on in comic books right now, where I go over the history of everything happening, how it relates to the current event, and then talk about what's happening in the current event, then we can put out these videos once or twice a week, but that means we can get you guys more full stories. Because if we can just focus on making a full story, all 6 to 7 issues, all 12 issues, right now I'm working on a Wolverine video that is 22 issues, then we can get those out because you guys like those more. But due to the nature of YouTube, I can't just only put out a video every 2 weeks. So my plan is to do these recaps if you enjoy them. So let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this, and then do more full stories. If we can, we'll do 2 of these recaps a week and 2 to 3 full stories a week, but it only works if you guys are cool with it. Anyway, thank you guys for your continued support right here at Comicstorian. I'm just trying to find a new way to get excited about doing this job. I've been doing it for 11 years and I still love it, but I do feel there's that little bit that I could do to just get that much more excited about it. And Dark Web legitimately has me excited, so I was like, this will be cool. I want to talk about Dark Web, and I want to talk about my opinions on Dark Web, and I want to talk to people about why Dark Web is fun and what's going on, so we're going to test this new format with Dark Web. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on what we're doing here at Comicstorian, and I will see you guys next time, hopefully, with the next recap, which I'm already looking at doing. You know what? I'm not going to spoil it. Just check back.